Hi, everyone. It's Jeff here with the Money Trekker podcast. And this is a special episode of our Best of Entrepreneur Essentials. Entrepreneur Essentials was a podcast and YouTube show that I did for almost 4 years and really shared a lot of entrepreneurial stories, specifically in our local community. People that I interacted with, hearing about how they'd started their businesses. And one of those interviews was during the pandemic in 2020 with a good friend of mine, Dr. Joe Serio. Joe is is a public speaker. He is a published author. He just recently published a new novel. And really, it's the whole idea of the interview with him in 2020 was to get his feedback. One of the things that Joe teaches on specifically with 911 departments, police departments, and fire departments is on fear. And it's not necessarily fear of doing your job. It's sometimes fear of success or fear of loss. How do you deal with that? And I really felt like it was important at the beginning of the pandemic to have Joe on. We also talked a lot about what was going on in his business. He was a public speaker. And when you can't go out and speak to groups, it, one, puts your business on hold, but two, it also forces you to really have to derive that interaction that you would normally get from some other source. So Joe really gave us a lot of information and a lot of good news, or good information at a time when things were the most bleak. I'll be interviewing Joe very soon on another episode, on a later episode, where we really focus on coming out of the pandemic, how to restart your business, what he's doing in his business, and in addition to that, really getting a good idea of how he dealt with the last year. So stay tuned. We'll see you back here in just 1 minute. Hey, everybody, it's Jeff here once again with Entrepreneur Essentials 2.0, and we're going to have an exciting interview today with my friend, Dr. Joe Serio. Joe and I have known each other for several years, and Joe is literally one of the best public speakers that I know. Also is an expert on fear and really dealing with what we are all talking about today, really talking about the fears that we have, both of of course, COVID-19 is out there, worrying about money and our health and, what our businesses are going to be like. All those things are weighing on us. And for some people, it's just really freezing them up. So, Joe, tell us a little bit about, yourself first off.
So as you said, I'm a full-time speaker, trainer, author. I wrote a book on fear, emotional intelligence, resilience. And I come out of a funny background. So I grew up the ninth of 12 kids with a Sicilian volcano for a father. So there was fear. There's a lot of fear, right at the outset, right? And but the place I learned most about myself and how I relate to fear was when I was working in Russia. So I used to investigate the Russian Mafia. I lived in Russia for almost 10 years. The former Soviet Union. And so my job in a nutshell was helping companies that were investing in Russia stay out of trouble. And when they got into trouble, my job was to make that trouble go away. And sometimes that trouble was a Russian mafia group banging down the door of our clients. And sometimes literally, sometimes physically, sometimes, race into these people's homes, get them to the airport in the middle of the night, that kind of stuff. And what I realized was the crazier stuff gets, the more relaxed I become. especially if I have to help other people, right? You're in a service industry. I've got to get out and help people be safe. Well, guess what? The same thing's happening right now. We are in a period where there's so many things to be afraid of if we allow ourselves. So what we really have to do is start to break it down into pieces, right? So let's start with one thing, like what is fear? Because people are freaking out and we have no idea where this thing is going. We don't know what comes on the back end. We don't know when it ends. We don't know what 2021 is going to look like. And on top of that, we have physical health issues. You know, if you're like me, you put on 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks of this thing, and you're worried about your family, and you're worried about your mortgage, and you're worried about there's tons of things to be worried about, okay? That's always the case. It's not dependent on COVID. It's always the case that you have those things to worry about. And here's the thing about fear. Fear is different from danger. And we have a tendency of confusing those two things and generating fear inside of ourselves about something that hasn't even happened, about something that may not even happen. I'll give you a quick example. I'm on the road a lot, and around Texas here where I live, I drive. I see up ahead, a half a mile down the road, traffic is stopped. You know, what's that little trigger in our brain? Oh, damn it, traffic. I'm going to be sitting in traffic for a half an hour. Oh, my God. And by the time I get to that spot, the traffic's already dissipated. We don't know what's coming down the road. That is fear. It's not danger. Fear is saying, oh my God, what if I drive through the wrong part of town and I get a flat tire at midnight and I have no cell service, right? That's fear. Danger is you get a flat tire in the wrong part of town at midnight and you have no cell service, right? Two totally different things. One, you have control over the fear. Two, you have control over preparing to mitigate the possibility of danger. Okay? When the danger comes, when it happens, now we have to respond to that. So, for example, our clients had the possibility of getting threatened by mafia groups. Okay? I couldn't sit in my office and wring my hands and say, oh my God, what if? That's not what we did. What we did was prepare all the ground first. Build relationships with KGB and police and whoever else. And build relationships with the people who could assist us in that endeavor. And then when it did happen, we had to respond the best we could with the reality of what we had in our hands. Right? At that moment. Guess what? It's exactly the same thing that's happening now. I can't wring my hands worrying and getting frozen about what might happen a month from now. The only thing I can do is decide who I want to be during crisis and who I'm going to be after crisis. And now what's the best way that I can prepare for those two situations? So when this thing started, I was in Dallas. I was on my last presentation. Turned out to be my last presentation. It was, my business, because of what I do, 100% gone. 100% gone. That's enough to freak you out. So the first thing that I had to do was take inventory. Why? Because I know that fear is a monster of our own creation. And you may say, no, it's COVID, it's the government, it's, oh my God, I don't know if I have enough money. No. That's step 3, step 4, step 5. Step 1 is the realization that fear is the monster in our heads that we create. And we stretch it out. In the moment of a lack of information or too much information that we can't make sense of, We take this and say, oh my God, look at those numbers. Oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Oh my God, we're all going to perish. Oh my God, what if, what if, what if? So no, 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 no. First question, what do those numbers really mean? Can I put them in context with other flus and what makes this the same as those? What makes this different than those, right? And we have to go through that process of taking inventory for ourselves, seeing what our relationship is to the actual issue. What's my relationship to COVID? My relationship to COVID is I might get it. And if I get it, I already know all the steps I'm going to take to deal with it, right? Because the planning and the prepping happens first to reduce the monster in our heads. We prep, we take inventory, because fear is something, the danger, the threat of danger, the threat of danger, the threat of harm that comes to our lives physically, emotionally, financially, that we get afraid of, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem is none of it is real until it happens, right? My fear of losing all of my money is not real until I lose all of my money. But one thing I'm going to do is say, okay, what are the avenues open to me to deal with that issue? What's the SBA doing? What's the Small Business Administration doing? What's unemployment doing? Well, how does that relate to me? Can I get a loan? Can I get an interest-free loan? Do I need to pay back at some point? Can I live with paying back a loan 6 months from now or a year from now? What is the flow of my business so that I know that if things come back by June, I'll be okay by December. If things don't come back till October, I may not be on my feet till March or April.
Yeah.
So what are all the dynamics within that? So the first thing we deal with in terms of fear is take inventory, prepare. Fear hates preparation. Fear hates your preparation, because then it knows that you're getting a handle on it. Then it knows that it can't fool you anymore. I know exactly how many dollars I have in the bank. I know how much I have in expenses every month. I know what my credit card bills are right now. I know what my credit card debt is right now. And I always want to keep credit card bills clear every month, right? But here's the reality. 4 months from now, I may not have the money. Mm-hmm. And I know that, right? So I'm not freaking out about 4 months from now. I'm preparing the road to minimize fear, to make sure that the front of my brain, the cortex, the decision-making, is still functioning, and I haven't retreated to the couch or the bed and decided I'm going to watch TV until this is over. I can't do that, because then fear is going to win, and I'm going to get frozen in place.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. You and I were having a conversation about this before we got on air today, and one of the things you were talking about is trying to avoid just massive amounts of activity at this point. Can you go over that a little bit?
Sure. So we're in a period of trauma. Whether we know it or not, whether we're facing it or not, whatever it is that we're feeling, the fact of the matter is we're in a period of trauma. We are doing things we haven't done maybe in our whole lives. We're feeling things we might not have felt maybe in our whole lives. We're feeling some lack of control. We're feeling the fear. We're feeling the fear of the unknown. And some of us, I've seen some messages being posted saying, now's the time, you can learn that foreign language, and you can learn to play music, and you can do all the things in your life that you never did before. And oh my God. You know what I want to do more than anything? I want to relax.
Yeah.
I need to relax. I know there's work I have to do, and there's work that I'm doing. I'm not sitting around watching TV all day, but there's work that I'm doing. But the fact of the matter is that every day I need to relax. Mm-hmm. I need to breathe. I need to do some meditation. I need to get out of the house and go for a walk. And I need to make sure that I can keep my head in the game. Because me burnt out 3 months from now is not going to help anything. Regardless of how panicky we might be right now, regardless of how freaked out we might be right now, be careful that you don't run the risk of running yourself into the ground, getting burnt out, and not really be able to keep your head about you, because most of us have other people that are relying on us. If you have kids at home, you can't, this is a great time not to transfer your panic to your kids. How do we mitigate the fear? We mitigate the fear by building up other people, our kids. Right? We can do little projects. We can do things that we spend time together. We go hiking in the woods, whatever's appropriate for this period. But if you're going to work 18 hours a day and listen to people who say, you know, basically the message they're telling you is, wouldn't you be ashamed of yourself if you didn't take advantage of all this time? You know, you always said that you were going to do this at some point in your life. Forget it. If you want to do this thing now, do this thing now. If you don't, then don't. Mm-hmm. And practice letting go of guilt, and practice letting go of all the things that are important but may not really matter in the big picture. This is a great time to reconnect with your spouse. This is a great time to spend more time with your family. This is a great time to strengthen and solidify foundations instead of racing ahead and pulling new things on. That's you reacting to your fear of, oh, I should have learned this 5 years ago. I should have done this 20 years ago. I was such an idiot for not, you know, learning the guitar when I was 15 years old. So I'm going to do it now and ram through. Don't do that. It won't help. It won't help.
Totally agree. Yeah. Well, somebody was asking me about that. Oh my God, you've got to be totally stressed out by all this stuff. And I said, yeah, I actually, for the first time in almost 3 years of my life, am about as calm as I've ever been, you know, because it's actually, this has forced me to slow down a little bit and not work 18 hours a day. You know, for the last 3 weeks, I've actually left work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, because I am coming into the office every day, and still have launched a podcast and have, you know, done a YouTube channel, a lot of stuff that I'd been planning to do, you know, new education programmings, all these things. It's still a lot of activity plus running the businesses, but it's forced me to slow down. And I think it's improved my creativity more than anything.
You know, that's a great point. I was thinking about that before we got on the call. In the past 3 weeks, me slowing down, I've read books I've never read before. I've read, you know, I'm reading Admiral McRaven's, one of his leadership books. Mm-hmm. And it's so far, it's just stories, right? It's just stories. It's not leadership. It's stories about his adventures being a SEAL. That has sparked so many new ideas for my business that I wouldn't have thought about otherwise. The other opportunity we have is, instead of racing forward, you can think about the last 3 months, 6 months, year, 3 years of all the crazy activity and say, okay, what did I not do well? What have I not been doing well these past 6 months that I really need to shore up? And for me, the other thing is, what have I been doing too much of that I really shouldn't be doing at all? Have I been taking meetings, you know, all these meetings I've been going to that I shouldn't be going to, you know, and all the money and all the lunches and all the, you know, socializing is vital. It's critical. But for me, in my business, the last 6 months, year, I've been pulling back on going out, because it was activity and not progress. Mm. COVID is doing a wonderful thing for us. It's helping us to reshape what is progress and what is just activity. And what activities have we been spinning our wheels on, expending our energy without getting results, right? Without getting output. That's something almost every entrepreneur I've ever met has a problem with. speakers, shopkeepers, whatever you want to call them, anybody who's out there doing the gig economy or solopreneur or whatever. It's a chance, it's an opportunity to slow down, like you said, and look at, oh, why are these people in my life? Why are these people in my business circle? Are they people that I can add value to? If I can't serve them, why am I doing it? If they can't serve me, why am I doing it? And it sounds a little bit harsh on the surface, but the fact of the matter is we have to manage our time, and the way we manage our time is by managing ourselves. And every time I've optimized managing myself, my business reached heights I never thought it would be at. Mm-hmm. So the thing about fear and COVID and this past month and everything else is that everything is connected. Our time, our fear, our weight, our nutrition, our health, our communication style, our revenue, the projects we choose, why we're even in the business we're in, all of these things are connected. And when you push on one, it pulls on the others. If I'm in my business because in the back of my head, I'm afraid my parents won't think highly of me, then maybe I'm in the wrong business. If I'm doing things out of messages in my head from when I was a kid, maybe I'm doing them for the wrong reason. This is a great time to revisit that. Like, why do I do what I do?
Absolutely, man. I'm right there with you. Well, let's do this. Let's take a break here real quick and get our sponsors on. And then when we come back, I'd like Joe to talk a little bit about kind of behind the curtain of Joe Serio Enterprises, what's going on right now from the perspective of, hey, the planning that you're doing and your plan of attack to get back out there after everything clears out. All right, cool. Thank you, sir. That was fantastic. As always, I would have expected nothing less. So we'll start back up here, and like I said, let's talk a little bit about your, kind of what you're doing, your game plan that you're working on right now, and some of the projects you're working on going forward. Okay, excellent. Well, hey everybody, welcome back. It's Jeff here once again, and back with Joe Serio. We're going to talk a little bit about now kind of behind the scenes with Joe, some of the things that he's working on, some of the things and projects that he is personally planning out right now as he's rolling out into, the great unknown when we all get back going. What's on the books for him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a big part of my clientele is 911 dispatchers, right? So I do a lot of training for 911 call takers, dispatchers. I speak to a lot of police departments, government agencies, city council, that kind of thing. So right now I'm reviewing, like we said earlier, I'm reviewing what have my ranch retreats been like the past 2 years. I do a 1-week ranch retreat twice a year for 911 dispatchers. So the question is, what creativity, like we were talking about earlier, can I bring into that space that makes it different, better, greater takeaways that are more impactful for their lives? So that's one thing I'm thinking about. The other thing I'm thinking about is I haven't done a lot of conferences as an exhibitor. So one of my big goals after this is over is to do trade shows at conferences for law enforcement and government agencies. So I'm identifying the associations that have big conferences, both in Texas and across the country. I'm working with a designer who is helping me design the back wall for my booth and the table and how that's going to look, as well as the giveaways that will be on the table. So, for example, posters and things about books and takeaways and things like that. And she's designing things that I never would have thought about, right? So she's bringing in ideas that I never would have imagined or tried to come up with on my own, because I wouldn't have. She has a different mind than I do. So we're doing that. So when this is over, some of my priorities will be to launch booths, go to conferences, national conferences, and design how the best way that comes across is. In connection with that, I'm working on a book for the dispatch world. It's probably about 50%, 60% done, and it's called Dispatch Supervisor: 50 Lessons on Being a Great Leader. So it's a leadership book, and I know that in dispatch, supervisors don't get any training at all, like most of the world, right? Oh, you're going to be a trainer tomorrow. God bless you. Good luck. See you later. And people are freaking out, like, how do I do this? How do I handle my people that I was hanging out with yesterday, drinking beer last night, and now I'm their boss? So doing those things, and of course the book you and I have been talking about for a long time, Vodka, Hookers, and the Russian Mafia, My Life in Moscow. So I am finally getting to the end of that book.
Nice.
So right now I'm working about 3/4 of a day, and a lot of it is on writing. But I'm also getting out of the house. I have a park down the street from me. It's important for me, and I feel the difference. If I go 2 or 3 days not getting out of the house, all those things start, the things we talked about earlier, right? The fear, and I'm getting lazy, and let me eat some ice cream instead of going out. Now I'm gaining weight. Everything's connected. So I'm getting out of the house and walking. And also I know that when I interact with people, I feel better. Mm-hmm. So I've been having phone calls like this, some Zoom things, some planning phone calls for after this COVID thing that have been fun and get me supercharged and keep my spirits up and keep me positive. The other thing that we do for my family, and I'm from a big family, my brother's a priest. So every Sunday he says mass on Zoom for my family. So we'll have 20, 30 people on the call.
Let's quickly stop here real quick. I gotta get some mail for somebody here real quick. I'll be right back. Okay.
So one of the big things that I've been doing, also because I never have time during the regular work year, is going through all of my classes, going through all of the programs that I've done, pulled all the books for those topics off my shelf. I have stacks all of my office of books for each class, and I just want to go through them, just flip through them and see, is there material that I want to use? Is there ways to upgrade and update my classes? Can I make them better? And to clear out some of the bookshelf and get rid of some of the books. And of course, as you know, I like to play music. Mm-hmm. So I pick up the guitar every single day. I pick up the guitar to keep the blood flowing and keep the cobwebs, cleaned out. And that's what I do. It's just, who do I want to be during COVID? Who do I want to be after COVID? What are the goals that I set for myself? And let's spend time relaxing, because it's really the critical thing we need to do is to not let the drama get inside of us. And let me just say something else. The danger is real. It's happening. It's happening to people. Mm-hmm. So let's not downplay that. But here's the thing: we don't need to get excited about it before it happens. And when it does happen, we need to know how we're going to support the people around us. We have a family text thread. There are 12 of us or something on this text thread. We talk every day. And we hear about who in our lives has gotten sick. And frankly, who in our lives has passed away. And a couple of my sisters have decided that they are making handmade masks. They checked all the specs. There are people in my family who are into emergency management. So they checked all the specs on how to do this properly. And they said, okay, that's what we're going to do to serve other people during this difficult time. So decide what you're going to do during this period, what you need to do to make your business stronger later, get through this period, and who is the person that you're going to be after COVID.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, how do people get a hold of you, Joe?
So my website is joeserio.com. My government website is glttraining.com. That's for government leadership training. My books are on Amazon, and that's pretty much Joe at joeserio.com. That's the email.
Awesome. Awesome. And we'll have all that in our show notes page. So for those of you that want to connect with Joe, feel free to go to the show notes page wherever you're listening to this podcast, or on our YouTube channel. We'll have it all on the show notes page there. So Joe, I want to thank you for coming on today. This was just fantastic. And I think it couldn't be more timely to have this conversation. Really look forward to seeing you back out there, and certainly as we can actually go out and be in public again, it'll be nice to see you in person again, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
All right, brother. Have a good day.
All right, we'll see you.